It was 3:07 a.m. when a loud, sharp knock shattered the silence of the house. Mark's eyes snapped open, his heart pounding like a drum. From beside him, Lily whispered in fear. "Did you call someone?" He shook his head slowly, every muscle tensing as another bang echoed through the hallway. From his room, 12-year-old Ethan peeked out, gripping his old wooden baseball bat. His young face was pale, but his eyes were alert. Then a deep, commanding voice boomed from outside. "This is HOA security. Open up immediately!" Mark froze. HOA? They didn't even belong to a homeowners association. Something was wrong. He glanced at the clock again. Why would security come at 3 a.m.? Outside, the beam of a flashlight swept through their windows, like a predator searching for prey. Ethan's small hands trembled, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew where his dad kept the emergency lockbox. Tonight, his courage would be tested in ways no child should ever face. Mark edged closer to the front door, his pulse thundering in his ears. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to sound calm. The voice outside replied sharply, "HOA security. You're in violation. Open up or face consequences." Mark's gut twisted. He had lived here for 5 years. There was no HOA, no security patrols, nothing. He motioned for Lily to grab her phone and dial 911, but the signal bars flickered and died. The storm from earlier had knocked out the tower. Ethan crouched in the hallway, his small frame hidden in the shadows. He'd watched enough true crime shows with his dad to recognize the signs. Whoever was out there wasn't here to help. Suddenly, a loud crash. The porch light burst, plunging the entryway into darkness. Mark's breath caught Ethan quietly, crept to the locked cabinet in the den. His hands trembled as he entered the code he'd memorized months ago, just in case. The weight of what he was about to do pressed down on his small shoulders. But in that moment, he wasn't a scared kid. He was the only line of defense his family had. The pounding grew violent. "Last warning, open up!" the stranger shouted, his voice cold and threatening. Lily clutched Mark's arm, whispering, "Please, don't." But before Mark could respond, the front door splintered open with a deafening crack. A tall figure in a fake uniform stormed in, his flashlight cutting across the living room like a searchlight. His badge gleamed, but up close, it was nothing but cheap plastic. Mark's voice trembled as he shouted, "Get out! This is private property!" The intruder ignored him, stepping deeper inside. "Everyone stay calm," he said, his tone almost mocking. "Just checking for violations." Ethan's heart thudded in his chest as he crouched by the hallway corner, the cool metal of the secured weapon now in his hands. He didn't want this. He didn't want any of it. But when the stranger's gaze drifted toward his mother, fear gave way to something sharper: protection. He took a deep breath, steadying his trembling hands, just like his father had taught him. Be calm. Think smart. Act only when you must. Ethan's breath came in shallow bursts, his small frame pressed tightly against the wall. He could hear every heavy footstep of the intruder echoing in the narrow hallway. Lily's quiet sobs filled the room, and Mark's voice, shaky but defiant, tried to reason with the man. "Take whatever you want. Just leave my family alone." But the fake cop wasn't listening. He moved with a cold confidence, his eyes scanning every corner of the house. When his gaze landed on Lily, he smirked, a twisted expression that made Ethan's blood run cold. In that instant, the fear melted away. Ethan tightened his grip on the weapon, remembering every word his dad had taught him. If there's no way out, you protect your family, always. The hallway seemed to stretch forever as the man took another step closer. Ethan's tiny fingers steadied. His heart raced, but his mind locked onto one thought. His mom needed him. Then, with a sudden burst of courage that didn't feel like his own, He stepped out from the shadows. The room froze the moment Ethan stepped out, his small frame trembling but his eyes steady. The intruder's smirk faltered as he noticed the weapon clutched in the boy's hands. "Easy there, kid," the man said, raising his hand slightly, his fake badge catching the dim light. "You don't want to do something stupid." "Mark's," voice cracked. "Ethan, put it down. It's okay." But Ethan didn't flinch. His father's words replayed in his mind. Protection first, fear later. Then came a single step from the intruder, one step too close. The sound of the shot was deafening, echoing through the quiet street. Birds scattered from nearby trees as neighbors' lights flicked on. The intruder collapsed, stunned more by the shock than the wound itself, and clutched his shoulder, groaning. Mark rushed forward, kicking the weapon away from the man, while Lily dialed 911 with trembling hands. Ethan stood frozen, tears pooling in his eyes, the weight of what had just happened crashing down on him. Outside, the distant wail of sirens began to grow louder. Red and blue lights painted the quiet street minutes later. Officers stormed the house, their voices sharp but controlled. The fake cop lay on the floor, clutching his shoulder, groaning in pain as paramedics worked quickly. Ethan sat on the couch, silent, his small hands still shaking. Mark knelt beside him, one hand on his shoulder. "You did what you had to do, son," he whispered, though his own voice wavered with emotion. Lily sat nearby, tears streaming down her face, still trying to process the nightmare. One officer approached Mark quietly. "This man isn't HOA, he's a con artist. Been breaking into homes in the area posing as security. Your boy, he probably saved your lives tonight." Mark swallowed hard, glancing at Ethan, whose blank stare revealed the weight of what had just happened. The boy hadn't spoken a word since the shot. As the suspect was carried out, cuffed and beaten by his own mistake, a neighbor whispered, "That kid's a hero." But Ethan didn't feel like one. Not yet. By dawn, the chaos had faded, leaving behind a strange silence. The front door, now shattered, hung loosely on its hinges, a reminder of how close they had come to tragedy. Ethan sat on the back porch, knees pulled to his chest, staring blankly at the horizon. Mark stepped out quietly, a mug of cocoa in his hands. "You were brave last night," he said softly, setting the cup beside his son. Ethan's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "Dad, I didn't want to hurt anyone." Mark knelt down, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I know, son. You didn't want this. But you protected your mom. You protected us. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you strong." For the first time since the sirens faded, a tear slipped down Ethan's cheek. He wasn't sure if he believed his father yet, but deep inside, he understood one thing. He hadn't been a scared little boy anymore, not when it mattered most. As the sun climbed higher, the neighbors gathered, offering words of comfort. To them, Ethan was a hero. To his family, he was something even more, their protector.